In case this is your first time watching Dungeon Crawl Talk Soup, my show is one part podcast with my friends, one part perilous permadeath gaming challenge. Mostly I chat with my friends about a topic they love, but rarely get the chance to talk about at length, but at the same time, I'm trying to get my first win at Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup. The catch is, if my character dies, the episode ends. Hope you enjoy the show.
I think that's another sort of thing where it's like, okay, once you reach that goal, like what now? Like, do you shift to a mode of maintenance, or do you kind of abandon ship and like sort of come back to that again at a later time? Like, I think that's also something that's really interesting to me is like I've seen a lot of people who, especially around like a big event like a birthday or a wedding or something like that, will like work very hard to get to this specific body type and then just abandon it and go totally back to what they were before. And like, I'm sure in a lot of cases that's healthier actually, but it's just so interesting to me that you could like achieve that and then just like totally like let it go in 180 and go back to the way things were. Like that's just to me, like I just have a hard time wrapping my mind around that.
Yeah, I definitely did not intend that to be what happened to me here in November of this year, and I don't feel guilty about it because I'm definitely getting back on the horse. But I see exactly what you're saying of like it happens all the time that people. Do you think that like also people have a tendency to go too far into that goal as well, like choose something that is like unhealthily unattainable? That's one thing that I feel that Jess and I did well in our like 12-week fitness program was like we weren't like also losing a bunch of weight or also like starving ourselves or something, right? Like just this one fitness program is a good way to have a sustainable thing for the future. You think that it's also the case that a lot of times people just go way too far into their fitness goal, hit that goal, but then like can't sustain it in any way.
No, that's a really good point. Like, I guess that it like is more so where I'm coming from is like it's it's just not productive or sustainable to create a goal or a routine that you can't maintain. So like, why bother? Like, I don't know. I'm such a long term thinker. I think that that's where a lot of this confusion on my part is coming from. Is like,
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine creating a routine and saying, like, this is my routine for until I get to this goal. And then who knows what happens from there. Like, I can't do this for the rest of my life. So, like, who knows? I don't have a plan after that. Like, just not having that long term, like, okay, this is how this is going to work out over time. And like, this is how I'm going to be able to keep doing this given the rest of the things that are happening in my life. Like, it's it just seems like a lot to commit to something knowing that you're just going to give it all up.
Yeah, so I can attest to there that happens with people all the time. And I'm not trying to get defensive necessarily, but I just wanted to think this through a little bit with you. Is that
Yeah.
I had that almost exact thing, except that I was like, I'm gonna try to achieve this goal, and I'm not gonna hold myself to necessarily something specific or longer after that. But I've
Mm-hmm.
chosen this goal because I think it's one that will lead to whatever I can set up as the next goal afterwards. So like I am exploring that right
Mm-hmm.
now of like, okay, we did that 12-week goal, and I didn't love this 12-week course necessarily. It was first of all, it was a very like thighs and squats focused routine,
Mm-hmm.
which actually now that I've read some more articles that are about how that's actually one of the the best fitness things you can do. It's best for your long term health is squats. Um, anyway, besides that point, I'm still felt to myself, I'm not sure I really want to just be going back and doing this 12-week program again. So, and I was kind of bored by it. So I was like, okay, what am I going to do next? But I always knew going through that program that at the end of it, like I wasn't going to completely revert, right? This was
Right.
a step of a process to something else, and I'm gonna do another goal-based thing afterwards. Whereas, like what you're saying is true of like you're looking at it and you're like, how can you not have this like long term goal? I'm like, I don't really have a good idea of what my long term goal is yet, other than to be doing something, I guess.
No, that's a really good point. I hadn't really thought about it from that perspective, and that totally makes sense. I like that aspect of like, I'm going to get to this point and then kind of assess what comes next.
Exactly, but but I'm not trying to say that's everybody. You're spot on that a lot of people have not thought past the current like project.
Yeah, I think like a lot of people come into fitness the way that a lot of people come into dieting, right? Like the crash diet
Yes.
is kind of a big deal, and now there are so many studies and like wellness coaches and people and nutritionists coming out and saying like this is totally unsustainable and in no way healthy for you to be like doing this yo-yoing of back
Yeah.
and forth. And so like think more about what you can sustainably commit to,
Right. Can
and
I
that keeps you healthy.
can I ask whether you consider fitness to be diet encompassing?
Yeah, it's a good question. I do, in the sense that I think when you're working out a fair amount, it's really important to pay attention to what you're eating to make sure that you have the like energy and nutrients that you need.
Mm-hmm.
So like I went through a period when I was running competitively where I was also dealing with eating disorders, and so like was not nutritionally sound in any way, and like had so many physical issues because of that, and like was like various forms of malnourished and like near
Oh man.
hospitalized a couple of times. It was like terrible. And so that's definitely something that I now like very much, I wouldn't say focus on, but like it's definitely a constant consideration for me of like, I start every day with some protein and like I make sure that I have electrolytes throughout the day. And like I have a monthly subscription to an electrolyte pouch like company.
Oh
Uh,
yeah. Is it really good?
I think it's really good. Yeah, it's called Element,
I've heard of
LMNT,
it.
the
Mm-hmm.
four letters. Yeah, I really like it because it's super salty, which is definitely my one of my favorite flavors, I guess.
Your taste preference.
Yeah, my taste preference. The grapefruit salt is great.
There you
I have
go.
at least one every day. Isabel now calls it mommy water.
Oh, that's really cute. Great
Yeah,
endorsement.
yeah, seriously. Yeah, I could totally be a sponsor for them.
Yeah,
Uh,
everybody, go ahead and Element, go ahead and sponsor the show going forward, or we'll get Liz back on to talk more about your product.
Yeah. If you don't like the super salty, then IQ also has really good ones. So highly recommend. They've made a big difference for me, like energy wise, I think. Um, I'm lucky. My sister in law is a wellness coach and a certified nutritionist. And I wouldn't say that I love everything she suggests, but she's made some really helpful suggestions. Like I'm now taking magnesium
Oh,
supplements, yeah, which apparently is great for like focus and like muscular recovery and like all different
it's
kinds
good
of
for
things.
sleep too, right?
Good for sleep, yeah, yeah. I think magnesium is like the it thing right now, but I'm enjoying it, so also will endorse that. But I get a lot of like I'd say I get a lot of recommendations from her, and I probably take like 50% of them. But I do try to like pay attention to that stuff within reason. Like I'm not gonna upend my life to like you know get on this very specific diet and like count my macros or
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
measure my ingredients or whatever. But like I try to pay attention to it. And mostly, I guess what this all comes back to on both the fitness side and the food side is like I really try to listen to my body, which I'm not great at, but I'm trying to really like pay better attention to what my body's telling me it needs and like how I should be balancing things to make sure that I'm like operating as efficiently as possible. Um, and just trying to like distill some noise from that. So I guess that's kind of from the fitness and the diet perspective what I try to come back to, so that I don't get too hyper focused on it.
This is all like super fascinating for me to hear you talk through because I've always been impressed by your fitness, and so
Well,
this is really cool. Yeah, and the ability for us to be able to go get drinks, or be able to have snacks and eat fries and stuff, and that not be like of any concern because you're balancing things really well between knowing knowing your body, knowing your fitness level, knowing what you care about.
Yeah, and that's a good point, and something that I've thought about increasingly, like as I've gotten older and as I've like gone through a lot of lifestyle and like body changes, is like that talking about the goal of like I want to be able to just run with whoever, or I want to be
Yeah,
able to like take my shirt off at any time. Like I think another sort of constant theme goal for me is like I want to be able to, within reason, eat what I want to eat and not feel guilty about it or not feel like I have to compensate or not feel like it's going to make me sick. Like I like to be able to sort of balance things in that way in
I would.
terms of.
I think we just hit the jackpot of shared goals. That's my number one goal is to be able to, yeah, exactly like you said, not have to restrict myself from having something that I want within reason, right? And I still sometimes go past within reason for, but
Totally.
but it would be better if that was like exactly where I could get to is like there's certain things I want and I can have them when I want to because I have this the rest of my time being fit and being on a healthy lifestyle.
Right. Yeah. I definitely.
I wanted to poke around on vanity. You haven't previously mentioned it being a vanity related issue, and so do you think it unhealthy for it to be vanity related?
I don't think so. I think that's like really natural. I just, I guess I'm a little more sensitive to it because of like my history with eating disorders and like having body image issues. I try not to be as focused on that aspect of it, which is
Sure.
probably why I haven't brought it up because I've like consciously tried to like keep away from that.
Uh huh.
Um, but like I definitely feel that part of the reason that I enjoy working out is because I don't have to then worry about my clothing or like how I look in photos or
Mm.
anything like that. So it's sort of more of a, it enables me to be more passive about the vanity aspect of things. Whereas if I felt like uncomfortable in my body or like self conscious about that, about the way that I look, then it would have to be more of a focus for me. So I guess for me, it's like working out enables me to not almost not focus on the
Yeah,
vanity.
yeah, that's great. That's great. Um, do you have like, do you have some core things to help people with, um, like body issues or with not having vanity be a massive focus?
Yeah, it's so hard, and like also
It's so individual.
to be part of it. Yeah, it's also definitely so individual. I think for I guess the advice that I would give, particularly in the context of like fitness and dieting, is going back to the like really trying to focus on listening to your body and like how it feels and what it needs, and just sort of taking a pause to consider that before making decisions. I think is really important.
Mm.
That's not something that I'm always good at, particularly on the fitness front, actually. Like there are definitely days where I should have slept in instead of worked out, and like I should have like taken it easier because that's not what I needed at the time. But I think that's like a really big aspect of it for me.
Mm.
Um, I think other things on the body image front. Um, I think it's also just like finding what makes you comfortable. I think a lot of people have very specific associations with specific foods or a specific size of clothing. I guess like certain expectations for themselves and associations with things as a result of that. So, for example, like I have certain foods that I just really enjoy that are like typically classified as bad. Like I'm a big cookie fan. I love scones very
Oh,
randomly.
really?
Scone fan, yeah. I think part of it has to do that I'm a tea drinker, and tea and scones are just such an unbeatable.
Oh, that's such a cute combination.
Yeah, it's very very British of me, and I'm not at all British aside from that. But like there are things like that where they just sort of have negative connotations and associations. And I I just like over time have had to kind of whittle that down in my own mind of like, this isn't a bad food. This is like just something that I enjoy, and like I can enjoy it in moderation. It doesn't have to be like a whole big deal, and just kind of like talking myself down from those battles, I guess, has been really productive for me, and just kind of normalizing some of the things that societally are like not are associated with being unhealthy or being, not fit or whatever.
Totally.
And then just balancing that with other healthier habits. I think another thing that was super interesting for me, I keep going back to pregnancy because I just thought it was such an interesting, like, physical experiment, among other things. But
Experiment.
many other things. When I was pregnant, it was like everything I read was like half your plate should be vegetables, eat a ton of vegetables, eat vegetables all day.
Yeah.
And when I did that, I realized that I actually really enjoy vegetables. And I hadn't been eating enough vegetables to make me like feel happy and feel satisfied with that. And I just never would have known that. And so now I eat way more vegetables than I used to because I really enjoy them. And like that exposure was really helpful for me. So I also try to like play around with things a little bit more now. Like I think I also had classified like certain meats as like inaccessible for me. And now I'm like, oh, like I actually really enjoy steak, but like I don't really like bacon as much. Like that's weird. So I think like just trying to get out of the sort of societal definitions of things and pay a little bit more attention to like what you actually enjoy and then balancing things that way. I think you'll find that like the balance is actually a lot more sustainable and healthier than the sort of spiky, like I'm going to enjoy this thing. Oh, now I'm not going to eat this for like a month. And now I'm going to have like 17,000 of that thing. And now I'm going to go back to not eating it for another
Oh
month.
my God, you're talking to that's how my household has that all over it. We need to learn that skill of balance and moderation. 17
It's,
when you said 17,000 of something and then zero of it, it's like that happens all the time around here.
yeah, it's really hard. I think actually, so Isabel is almost 3 now. And I think she's actually helped me to become better about that in the sense that, like, because we're not very careful about what she eats, to be honest, we have junk food around all the time. And so I've really had to figure out, like, how to live with that. Because before I just wouldn't ever have that around. It just
Yeah.
like wouldn't really be in my house. And now the
Right.
temptation is there all the time, and I have to like figure out how to yeah deal with that on a regular
Mm-hmm.
basis. So it's been a good exercise, but it's been tough.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I do think like fitness and food, for better or worse, are so intimately tied together, and that probably goes back to what we were talking about earlier about like it feeling very like personal and judgmental for people
Mm-hmm.
because fitness relates to food, which relates to like body and body image, and that's always kind of a tough, tricky situation.
Well, like in the course of trying to lose weight or trying to, for the lack of try to avoid that as the metric, like trying to be more physically happy with your body, right? They always the whole thing is calories in, calories out, right? Like you either can diet and eat fewer calories, or you can exercise and burn more calories.
Right.
And I think that for me, I'm always like, oh, I would much rather exercise more in order to have more freedom from a calorie perspective. I'm speaking about Jess without her permission, but like she, I think she's the opposite. I'm fairly sure she told me many times that she's like, I wish I'd never had to exercise ever.
Right.
And but then that means that she'd have to diet in
Right.
contrast. So she's a former runner too, but she just doesn't like it anymore.
Yeah, that's
But
fair.
she's a great power walker.
Ooh. There have been a lot of articles recently about like the optimal long-term cardio exercise, and it seems
Mm-hmm.
like it is power walking at an incline.
I
That
had,
is like
I had
the
heard that
optimal.
recently that there's something to like the optimal thing is to keep your heart rate below like 120 or something like that, like in this perfect 90 to 120
Yes.
range for a little while.
Yeah, it's like the zone 2 on the Apple Watch.
Okay, so
Like
you've read about this or you've been seeing these?
yeah, yeah. Because actually, when I got, it always comes back to pregnancy. When I got pregnant last year, I was talking to someone about like how I was gonna have to adjust my fitness, and they're like, "Oh, you just have to be in like zone 2 all the time. That's where you're supposed to be." It's like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? Apparently, it's a thing.
Have you tried to accomplish that since?
No,
What does
I
your heart
don't
rate
really.
get to when you're running? Do you get going fast?
Yeah, I get up to like 160, 170 with my
Whoa, really?
guide.
How
Yeah.
fast are you going?
At that, I'm usually going like 730 to 740 pace. I mean, not recently,
Wow,
but like
wow. How long can you
previously.
hold that?
Like an hour.
No.
Yeah, I'd run like that pace for like 7.5 miles, which ends up being like an
Woo,
hour.
woo.
But yeah, I really like those high cardio, like high heart rate exercises.
Yeah.
And so when I read those articles, I was like, oh, I hate hearing this.
Yeah. Can you do what's the fastest mile you can do?
I don't know. I was thinking about that. I haven't done that in a long time.
I've been thinking about trying to figure out my fastest mile, but I bet it's as fast as your 7 miles worth of fastest miles.
Oh, definitely not.
Oh
But if
yes,
you,
for sure. I bet my fastest mile is like 7:30. Period. I don't think I could go faster than that.
no, didn't you do that for like 3.5 miles or something this spring?
I think maybe I did, but it was like it was just so chock full of adrenaline. I can't even. I still can't exactly believe that it happened, but I did run a 3.5 at a 7:35 pace or 7:37 pace or something.
Yeah, that counts. Adrenaline's natural, so if
So
that's all
somewhere
you,
in there, I might have had like a 7 minute mile, maybe.
yeah.
All right,
Well, if
fine.
you want to do a 1 mile like sprint this spring, I'd be down.
Where's the Do you have a track?
I don't, but we definitely could find one.
Yeah, there's one. There's one over in Bed-Stuy.
Okay.
Sure, there's tracks in Central Park or somewhere nearby somewhere.
Yeah, I know there's one in Chelsea that I think is public, and then there is a loop up at the Great Hill closer by me, but I don't know how big it is.
That's like marked, or you mean like an actual track?
It's not an actual track, but it's like a loop that is a specific distance. I just don't know what it is.
Oh, okay.
And it's flat.
Um,
But yeah.